I'm Anne-Marie from brambleberry.com. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these lemon bar soaps. This is a really fun recipe in that it's gorgeous looking. The payoff is there, but it's also pretty easy to make. So if you're a beginner, you know what? This could be perfect for you. This recipe features one of Brambleberry's latest fragrances, Lemon Bar Fragrance Oil from our Dreamy Desserts collection. It smells, yes, like a lemon bar. So we're talking butter, shortbread, sugar, yes, lemons, but it's not like a lemon candy. It's much more buttery and much more warm and much more dessert, and it's really fantastic in soap. And amazingly, even with all those sweet notes, it doesn't discolor all that much. This uses a little bit of titanium dioxide to help keep it white, but really, this is a pretty wonderful, easy yellow, considering that this really does smell like it has a lot more vanilla notes in it. So first things first, I've already prepped the oils. This is a traditional kind of coconut, olive oil, palm oil, mango butter with 5% jojoba. And I love jojoba oil in soap because it's a liquid wax. And so what it really helps to do when you're soaping up with it, if it gives the soap a really beautiful slip, and it also helps to condition your skin. And so I do love jojoba oil in soap. It's a full 5% in here. Before I add my lye, I'm gonna go ahead and suit up for safety. Obviously you wanna protect my eyes and hands. So like always, whenever I'm using a silicone mold, there is sodium lactate in my sodium hydroxide, and I like it because it does to help unmold the soap faster, and it does make a slightly shinier, harder bar of soap because it is a salt, and salt is really a natural hardener in soap. I'm pouring my sodium hydroxide and my sodium lactate and my water slowly down the shaft of the stick blender just to help with air bubbles. And now, I'm just gonna stick blend until I get to a nice light trace. And now I'm at a thin trace, but I can always get thicker. You can't get thinner. I'm just gonna go ahead and whisk in my lemon bar fragrance. It smells so good, and I can kind of see it when it goes in. It creates tiny little white trailings, so just whisk those away. And I love that this is just getting nice and creamy now. I can see that the trace is starting to just get a little bit more robust as I whisk this in. From here, I'm gonna split my batch. I'm gonna put just about 16 ounces by weight of this soap base into this other container because that's gonna be my bottom. That's gonna be kind of the brown from the crust. For the bottom, we're just gonna do brown iron oxide, and I'm just doing 1/4 teaspoon of dispersed brown iron oxide. So this is 1 teaspoonful brown iron oxide dispersed into 1 tablespoon of a lightweight oil. And then I took 1/4 teaspoon of that, just that much, and put it into my 16 ounces of soap. And you'll find that that creates a really lovely brown color. It's perfect for kind of your crust base for your lemon bars. And now that that's whisked in really well, I'm gonna hit this with a stick blender just a little bit more because I kind of want that trace to be just a little bit thicker since it's my bottom layer. I want it to be able to kind of hold that second layer. This looks fantastic. It's really gorgeous and creamy. So now I'm just gonna do a little bit to cover, and I can always add more. And what I'm gonna do is just cover the bottom, and then after each 3, I'm just gonna kind of shake the mold to see if I can settle that brown out, because this is lemon bars, so we just want this to be the very bottom and just kind of be the crust. And so once you shake like that and you kind of agitate it, the whole soap mixture gets a little bit more flowy and a little bit more liquidy and goes to the sides of the mold, which is great. So you don't have to pour too heavy of a layer in order to get a full coverage. And I do it kind of every third. Otherwise, you'll find that the brown kind of starts to set up a little bit more. So these would look really cute in so many different shapes. You could even do this kind of in one of the Brambleberry loaf molds, like the horizontal loaf molds too, and just even cut them. So if you didn't have this particular mold handy, there's a few different ways you could do it. I do really like this one though, because this mold helps to give beautiful even sides and really smooth, gorgeous sides that really shine. But you could totally do this in one of the Brambleberry horizontal molds and then just cut as well. I do have a little bit more soap left, and I am really tempted to keep it like this, but I also don't want to waste the soap, so I'm just going to pour a little bit more into each container and then go ahead and see if I can shimmy this down so it goes in and doesn't leave any sort of kind of not perfect, but it looks great. And then I don't want to waste any soap, so it's just going to spatula a little out and get that last little bit in here. Okay. And there we go. Perfect edges, perfect on the side. No one's going to see the middle, so those can be just a little bit rougher. And now I'm going to work on the yellow. So now I'm going to do the yellow layer. So I'm going to do about a teaspoon of this titanium dioxide that's been mixed already with a lightweight oil. And I use a little mini mixer to make sure there's no clumps in it. And then all of this yellow. And this yellow is such a happy yellow. This yellow mica is fantastic. It really is super vibrant. And I'm going to just hand mix everything in. I don't want it to be too thick. I want it to stay nice and fluid so that way it really flows nicely and evenly over that first layer. Now, all we need to do is do this layer of yellow. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of spoon it in first just to cover, because we don't want this heavy amount of soap, because I'd be pouring it from this giant spigot basically, to break through that first layer. And so just spooning it on first will help with that. It's a little messier, not going to lie, but that way we get an even perfect layer every single time. So now I have given up on my small spoon and I'm using a spatula to just ladle in this gorgeous soap. It is acting so perfectly. It's staying so fluid and it looks gorgeous. It really looks like the most delicious lemon cream bar from here. And also smells so good. And it's flowing really beautifully. This is sort of a modified flooding technique because we've kept this trace really pretty thin. This is a thin to medium trace. And so that allows it to just flow beautifully over that first layer. And again, if we were pouring from this big spout, we had that directed amount of soap going directly onto that brown, we'd end up with a divot or kind of probably a breakthrough in the brown. And so that's what we're avoiding by hand scooping here. It's a little messier, but it really does pay off in the end when you end up having even gorgeous layers of your lemon bar. Of course, I notice I am spilling a little bit, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about doing this, because since this is a really beginner-friendly recipe, you might be new to soap making. And one of the ways you can protect your countertops, especially if they're wood or anything that is not kind of an impervious surface like this, just put some cardboard down or put some old newspaper down or anything that can really absorb this caustic. You guys, this is a pH of 12 to 14 still. This caustic chemical process and substance right now, because it really will, it'll ruin your wood and it can hurt your countertops. So if you're brand new, make sure you're preparing your soaping area before you're starting to soap. Obviously here at Brambleberry Studios, we do have an impervious surface that handles this really well, but we did design the entire studio just for that. So there's a little bit more in here and I don't want to waste any soap, so I'm kind of just finding these soaps that just need a little bit more. Of course, you could always pour the overflow into an extra mold, but who doesn't like getting a nicely filled bar of soap that feels fantastic in the hand? So I'm kind of tempted to try and make these just like this with this kind of more textured look. I will say I did pour this thin, so it's poured so thin that, yeah, it's not going to really texture all that well. So now I have a choice. I can either wait 10 or 15 minutes until I can texture it, or I can be like, you know what? Lemon bars are smooth on top, and I'm just going to put the titanium dioxide on. Whatever you decide at home, total personal preference. It's a bar of soap. It's going to look great no matter what. It's been just about 10 minutes. I tested this one to see how it's looking, and this is looking good. It's going to hold texture, which is great because I really want these to just be textured and look a little bit more like really luscious lemon dessert bars. And so I'm just taking the back of my spoon and I'm just sort of making loop-de-loops and whatever you feel like. There is no right way or wrong way. It's just a little bit of waviness to give some interest to the back of these bars. Because remember, the back of the bars are going to actually be the top of the bars. So this is what we're going to put our titanium dioxide on. I have to say, oh, I think that was perfect until I started messing with it. Now it is not perfect anymore. This is very addicting. You can do this for a long time. So now what I'm doing is nice little waves, primarily because I think it probably honestly looks better than the situation I've got going on over here. And they're a little bit more uniform. And so the way you create the nice waves is you take the back of the spoon and you just push it gently down while pushing it gently forward. And the thicker your trace is, the more the waves will go down and up. The thinner it is, the kind of more relaxed the waves get. My tendency is to go way too fast, and then you just kind of end up with like a weird chop. So you really do kind of want to go slow and low to let the petals of the waves form. So final touches for these, now that they're done, they're textured, they're gorgeous, I'm going to do some rubbing alcohol. And the rubbing alcohol just helps to create a little bit of a barrier between the air and the soap. And this is 99% rubbing alcohol, so it's pretty hard to find in stores. You can find, this is obviously from brambleberry.com to get the full 99%. But this helps to put down a barrier between the soap and the air so soda ash is less likely to form. So for the powdered sugar, what I'm gonna do is take a little bit of titanium dioxide and I'm gonna put it through this little powder duster from Brambleberry. And this does two things. One, it helps me control how much goes on there. And two, also make sure that there's no big clumps of titanium dioxide that end up sitting on top of the soap that end up leaving white streaks on people. So just one little tiny tap with your finger and that's it. We're just going for a really light dusting of powdered sugar / titanium dioxide in just a little bit of your, I kind of like to do it in a little bit of a corner as opposed to all over because I want this, that's kind of the way I've seen lemon bars done. Personal preference, of course, it's soap, so you can put as much as or little as you want on. Just keep in mind that it's really for decoration and you don't want too much on there because you don't want to have anybody having white streaks on their body when they shower. So now, totally optional, you can put this on a heat pad, especially if you're in cold temperature or your soaping garage or soaping studio is rather cold, or you can just leave it sitting out like I'm gonna do because I'm inside a warm studio, and then let these sit for 3 to 5 days and they'll be ready to pop out. So I made these about 4 days ago and it's time to unmold them now. I love the silicone mold from Bramble because basically the bars just pop right out. And this is perfect. That little bit of titanium dioxide looks just like powdered sugar. These are popping out so smoothly and so cleanly, and I love how shiny they are on the sides too. The silicone molds really help with creating a nice shine and a sheen. And then if you don't want any fingerprints, of course, you'd be wearing gloves to pop these out as opposed to me, because I don't really care that much about fingerprints, but if you care, make sure you're wearing gloves. I also noticed I just got a little sloppy on unmolding this one, and so I kind of dented it right on the side. So if you're unmolding this after just like 3 to 5 days, try and unmold straight up and don't do what I just did and dent your soap on the side. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and give us a thumbs up down below. And also, if you're not subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and be notified every single time we come out with new videos on how to make really cool things and enhance your creativity. When you're making products and posting them to social media, we'd love to see what you create. Hashtag your creations, Bramble on, so we can see it and everybody in our makers community can see it. Until next time, happy soaping.